Okay, so what if I told you that your 9 to 5 job, yeah, that job, could be just as sacred as a monk's prayer? It's a pretty wild idea, right? But that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We're going to unmask the true meaning of vocation by looking back at the wisdom of the Protestant reformers. I mean, have you ever felt that little pang of anxiety? You know, that feeling that your job, whether you're a doctor, a baker, or a parent, is somehow less holy, less spiritual than some big capital S spiritual calling? It's such a common feeling, and honestly, it's the exact myth we're here to bust wide open today.
So let's just call this myth what it is. It's this idea that there's some kind of spiritual ladder of jobs, right? You've got pastors and missionaries way up at the top, and then, well, the rest of us are somewhere down below. And that just creates all this pressure to somehow prove our everyday work is special. But the reformers? Whoa, they came at this from a completely different and pretty radical angle.
All right, so the first big shift in thinking is all about changing the direction of our good works. It's like flipping a switch. The focus isn't on sending them up to God, it's about sending them out to the people around us, to our neighbor. And you gotta understand, this simple little shift is actually revolutionary. See, the old way of thinking was that we do good stuff to try and earn brownie points with God. But the reformers were like, nope, that's not the point at all. We're not trying to pay God back for anything. So instead of trying to climb some spiritual ladder up to God, we're suddenly free to just turn around and serve the people who are right there in front of us. So the true flow is totally different. It looks like this. Step 1, we just receive. That's it. We receive everything we have from God purely by faith. Then, and this is key, only then do we become like a channel or a conduit, passing those gifts along to our neighbors in love. It's a complete 180 from that old ladder climbing model. And Martin Luther, he just nails this idea of an outward-facing life. He said life isn't supposed to be some internal, self-focused spiritual project. No, it's lived in Christ, by faith, and then it's lived out in the world for our neighbor, through love. See the shift?
Okay, this brings us to what is maybe the central idea of this whole explainer. It's a powerful metaphor. Get this. What if God is the one actually doing all the work in the world, and our jobs are just the costumes he wears to do it?
I mean, this just completely flips the script on what vocation even means. It stops being about what we do for God. Instead, it's all about what God is doing for the world, through us. Our jobs, our roles in our families, all our daily tasks. These become the masks that God puts on to care for the world. Seriously, just think about it for a second. God himself is milking the cows, but he does it through the hands of the milkmaid. He's providing our daily bread through the work of farmers and bakers. He's arguing a case in court through a lawyer. All of a sudden, these totally ordinary jobs are just filled with this incredible divine purpose. And this quote from John Calvin, wow, it just drives home the amazing dignity this idea gives to all work. He says that no task is too mundane, too sordid and base, because when you're doing your calling, you're a mask for God. And in God's eyes, that work absolutely shines. So this totally radical view of work brings us to our next big point. And it's a big one, because we've got to tackle a super famous but also super misunderstood idea, the so-called Protestant work ethic. Turns out it might not be a work ethic at all. It's more of a gift ethic. So did Calvinism invent modern capitalism? You've probably heard this theory before, right? It was made famous by the sociologist Max Weber. The basic idea is that the Protestant Reformation, especially Calvinism, basically created the mindset for modern capitalism. But is that actually true? Is that what the sources really tell us? Okay, so the popular theory goes something like this. Calvinists were really anxious about whether they were saved or not, so they worked like crazy to prove to themselves and to everybody else that they were one of God's chosen people. Success in business became a sign that God liked you. But when you actually go back and read what they wrote, you get a very different story. Yeah, let's just put these two ideas side by side. With Weber's work ethic, the motivation is pure anxiety. But with Calvin's gift ethic, the motivation is thankfulness. For Weber, success is a sign of God's favor. For Calvin, whoa, success was actually seen as a danger to your faith. And here's the kicker. The goal of having wealth wasn't to pile it up and save it. It was to keep it moving, to circulate it, to help people in need. And hey, this isn't just some modern take. The scholar Andre Bieler backs this up. He says Calvin absolutely dreaded greed and hoarding money. He wasn't trying to create a bunch of capitalists who sat on piles of cash. The whole point of having economic goods was to put them back into circulation, to get them out into the community where they could help people. Okay, so where does all this leave us? Well, it totally shifts our focus. It moves us away from these huge, grand ambitions to change the world and points us toward the quiet, profound power of just being faithful, day in and day out. So forget about that crushing pressure to change the world. This way of thinking calls us to something much simpler, but maybe way more profound. It's about faithful presence. That's it. Just show up. Do your calling. Right where you are, doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a stay-at-home parent. Do it faithfully, knowing that God is the one working through you. There's this great poet, George Herbert, who just captures this idea so beautifully. He says that even sweeping a room, if you do it as for God's laws, makes both the action and the room itself fine. It becomes this dignified, beautiful thing. Okay, here's a really great way to remember the main point of all this. We are not Santa Claus. It's not our job to be the source of all the gifts. We're the elves. We're the instruments, the delivery people that God uses to get his good gifts out into the world and to the people around us. And you know, when you start to see things this way, it just transforms your entire view of the world. It stops being just a workplace or a stage for our own career ambitions. Calvin called it a beauteous theater, this incredible, magnificent stage where we actually get to watch and even take part in God showing his glory and care for everyone. So I'll leave you with this question. Where is that beautiful theater of God's glory playing out in your world today? Where do you see it? In your job, in your family, in your community? Where can you spot the masks of God at work right now?